Tuesday. Yeah. I had an amazing reading week. There's a previously filmed clip, which I will insert here shortly. And then I had an amazing reading week. By the way, welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. I read 5 books last week since I filmed the inserted clip, and they were all over the place. So, after you watch the insert, I will be back. Finished a lot, if that makes sense. So, I'm going to film a clip of what I finished and my DNF so far for the month of March, and then I will compile it with everything I finished this week, and it'll come out next week. So, okay, what have I DNF'd for the month? Unfortunately, All It Is Secret by Patricia Raybon. This is, as you know, the book club read for the month, and I had started it long before it was chosen by book club, and I was already struggling with it, but I figured, reading it with all of you lovely people would help me push past whatever was bothering me about the book, and we would have great conversations like we always do, and it would be fine. Unfortunately, no. This is clearly a Christian cozy mystery. She is a theology professor. There is scripture quoted through the first 5 chapters. There is no question that this is a Christian cozy mystery. Thus, it makes the problem, and the reason I DNF'd, even more egregious. So, if you are planning to read this book, I'm going to include timestamps so that you can skip this section, because here come spoilers. Okay. Chapter 5. She is on a train pulling into Denver, which is her destination, and she has, with the help of one of the porters on board, for reasons that are still unclear to me, locked herself, with the help of the porter, in the baggage compartment. Okay? That's the setting. She doesn't have her purse, she doesn't have her luggage, her coat, anything. But she's locked in the baggage compartment. It's dark, there's no lighting, obviously. It's 1920s, it's in a trade, it's not exactly going to be heated or lit. She hears noises. She discovers that one of the street urchins she ran into in Chicago stowed away on the train in the hopes that he too could find a better life. So, we have a black woman, we have a white child, and soon enough, in the train baggage compartment, somehow she is accosted by a man who is choking her to death, and the 11-year-old boy pulls a rusty knife from his sock and stabs him in the back. The cop dies. I don't know if, I cannot remember if they knew it was a cop at the time, but that's neither here nor there. She makes the oh so incredibly wise decision to leave the crime unreported, flee with a child that is not her own, flee with a white child in what is known to be a KKK-controlled city. As a black woman, neither one of them have a jacket in the dead of winter in January in Denver, and they leap off a moving train after, admittedly, in self-defense, causing the death of another person. Even in secular cozy mysteries in general, books in general, an an unreported crime, especially a murder, by the protagonist, in which he intentionally flees from the police to avoid questioning, prosecution, any of that, is an automatic DNF for me. Even more so when it occurs in a Christian cozy. I know. I am sorry. That is a hard and fast line for me, and it just no. So this is a very hard DNF for me, and I will not be picking up any other book in the series. Just because I didn't get along with it doesn't mean that you won't. But for me, hard and fast no. Just an absolute no. Okay, moving on. What have I read? Okay, so I did read Shyamala by Henry Fielding. This is his response to Pamela by Samuel Richardson. It is far shorter. It is like under 100 pages, and right around 100 pages maybe. It is the opposite side of the coin of Pamela in almost every respect. She is clearly a wanton woman. She is clearly not in love with the man she works for, yet she's clearly after his money and his prestige and is all for, marrying him for those things. She is carrying out an affair with the parson that was, in Pamela. It is really just the mirror image, and it is I think Richardson himself was a misogynist. I think Fielding is a misogynist too, but on a different level than Richardson. So Richardson in Pamela is I am a man, I know better than you. You need to follow everything I say because religiously you are incapable of forming your own opinions type of misogynist. And Fielding is a misogynist in Shyamala because he thinks women are manipulative, lying, out for their own ends, and lead men around by their coattails. So they both have the same point. They make it very differently. And, Richardson attempts to end his on a happy note, which I don't think is actually a happy note in the slightest. And Shyamala is very blatant in its disregard for the sanctity of marriage. I think if you take them together, they balance one another out. And especially if there is an abridged version of Pamela somewhere, and you read the two back to back, like you definitely have to read Pamela first to understand the point of Shyamala. But if you read them back to back, they make much more logical sense. They are definitely a reflection of the times and a political commentary and a world viewpoint that not just that men are superior, but that women can be just as intelligent as men, especially this is true in Fielding's. They're just crafty and devious and underhanded, and which is, the exact opposite of what's going on in Pamela with the quote unquote male protagonist. So I am not sorry I read it. I don't think it's by far the worst thing I've ever read. I just think it's a very different spin on the same theory, and one that wasn't paid for to be written from a theological point of view like Richardson's was. And that accounts for a lot of the humor and bawdiness that is in Shyamalan, as opposed to the morality, parable, theology that is expressed in Pamela. So take that for what you will. Okay, what else have I finished this week? I have finished book 2 in the Invisible Library series. That is The Masked City by Genevieve Cogman. This is secular steampunk fantasy. It is the second in the series. And I absolutely loved this book. I loved the first one. I absolutely loved this one. And I read this right after I DNF'd All That Is Secret. And this is a purely secular book. There is no faith of any kind in this book. However, when the moral compass of a secular character in a steampunk fantasy is stronger than the protagonist of a Christian cozy, that says something. So in this book, Irene, who's our heroine, ends up in Venice trying to rescue her assistant, Kai, who is a dragon and has been kidnapped by the Fae that run this version of Venice. So the Fae are very chaotic, dragons are very order-based. So, and Irene, being a librarian of the Invisible Library, she's a neutral party and she's has the means to protect herself. So she ends up in Venice. It's filled with Fae people who are there to A, attend Carnival, and B, attend the auction that she learns Kai is being sent to for the glory of the Fae that kidnapped him in Irene and Kai's version of London. And so she's in a bar, she's blending in with some Fae people, and one of the Fae becomes extremely drunk, and she's trying to escape. Irene's trying to escape some pursuers, and she makes the conscious decision, despite the risk to herself, to not abandon her drunken Fae companion that she just met. They have no long-term relationship. Alone on the streets of Venice in her condition, and she has a conversation with herself. I need to escape, but I can't leave her here to, whatever's going to happen potentially. And so she makes the conscious choice to slow down her own escape and help this Fae out. And that was a very clear moral choice. It was very clear she did the right thing despite the risk to herself. And I just got to say, why was that missing from a Christian cozy? It was such a juxtaposition that, a lot of times we bash quote unquote secular books because they are secular books, and they seem to get a bad rap as having no worth of their own. And this is just a great example of a reason you shouldn't judge a book based on a genre. Irene makes a clear moral distinction. She saves the drunken girl at great peril to herself. She has, it's a recurring theme in the book. She has gone against all guidance from her superiors at the library to, transport herself to this high chaos world to save Kai, and knowing that she's going to face repercussions for that decision, but she can't leave him to his fate because his own family can't come rescue him, because it would start a war between Dragonkind and the Fae, and that would destroy, more lives than I can count. And, order cannot avoid a high chaos world because it's poisonous. So there's just a bunch of reasons. But she makes the right choice repeatedly. And it is very important to remember that just because a book is secular does not mean there are not moral choices and decisions made. Are they always the right one? No. Is the right choice always made in Christian books? As All That Is Secret shows? No. So my larger point is you shouldn't dismiss a book because it is secular. It doesn't work that way. Okay. I have a bunch of books in progress. So I am currently reading Triumph of Angel's Comb by Hilary Walker. This is Catholic speculative fiction, and the writing is good. However, I can only read this in small doses. I have discovered I do not like the end times, pre-dystopian type of genre. And that's what this is. I'm going to finish it. There's a lot of stuff in there I do like, but in general, no, I'm going to pass on that in the future. Okay. What else am I currently reading? I am halfway through Anne of Avonlea. This was a February book. It's just a matter of me carving out the time and reading it. So I will finish this week, undoubtedly. I would like to get book 3 read this month too. We shall see. I want to this week I will finish The Grey King this week. This is book 4 in the Dark Rising sequence, and middle grade fiction as well. And it's my read for Anne's prompt this month. And this little book is 164 pages. That is The Victory Garden. And while this does not fit Anne's prompt, it is middle grade fiction, and I can read it and see if I'm going to keep it. But yeah, and it has tomatoes on the cover, and I need to today go sacrifice some tomatoes I am enjoying immensely because I cannot find the seeds for them anywhere. So I need to get those seeds sacrificed here this morning and dried out so that I can plant them myself, because they are delicious and tart. They're so good. And they have so much flavor. So yeah, I need to go sacrifice those seeds, which I will do as soon as I finish this. And I'm going to start My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Bachman. this is my choice for Amanda's reading prompt this month. And I at least need to start this week. And after I do that, I also need to start this week The Word, the Flesh, and Father Smith. This is my choice for Jeanette's reading challenge. And again, it's another one that's not very long. 237 pages. So I just need to carve some time out and read. Okay. I'm going to go read after I do tomatoes. And I undoubtedly hear more clips. Okay, you're back. So what did I read? I had no DNFs. Thankfully, Dave brought home the crud, and that let me just, read. And I finished 2 audiobooks. I finished Anne of Avonlea. I finished The Grey King. I read 6 books. Finished The Triumph of Angels Come. And I read a book I hadn't even anticipated, and I loved it so much. That was Magnify. So, let's just dive right in. Let's talk about the most quote-unquote difficult book I read. That would be The Triumph at Angels Come by Hilary Walker. This is my first Hilary Walker book. This is Catholic fiction, and the book opens up with an author's note, and I completely agreed with everything in the author's note. So, I was prepared going in. The book is set. Okay, bird handled. So, The Triumph of Angels Come deals with a futuristic Catholic church that isn't hard to imagine, unfortunately. And a bunch of Catholic priests are assigned to a farm known as Angels Combe to raise a breed of pony known as the Dales pony in pursuit of the governmental and church-driven dictate that we are going back to a horse and buggy type of society. And the priests are specifically forbidden from saying mass, preaching, doing their priestly duty. And of course, they don't listen, and they do it in secret. And there is the first 2/3 of the book were a struggle for me. Not because of the writing, but because the villain in the book was, I can't say much without giving it away, very uncomfortable to read about. And then there is a salvation story for the last third of the book. I ended up liking it very much. I will continue to read by her. I have more of her on my Kindle, but dystopian, apocalyptic type of stories aren't my favorite to begin with. And then that in a church setting was just not my cup of tea. So while I did end up liking the book, the first third was definitely 2/3. By far not my favorite. So that's how the week started off. And in the middle of the week, I did pick up and start Tom Jones. This is the Road to the First English Novel vlog. I'm about 70 pages in. It's enjoyable so far. It isn't going to set the world on fire, but it is enjoyable. So, I then listened to 2 audios. The First one would be Legacy of Lies by Robert Bailey. This is the first in the Bocephus Haynes, I believe it's a duology. And this is a legal thriller. And it is set down south, I want to say Georgia. And our titular character is Bocephus Haynes. He is a disgraced lawyer, and as the book opens up, he loses custody of his kids to his in-laws after he is, they sue for custody because his life is a mess. The attorney general for the county is accused of murdering her ex-husband, to be precise, because he threatened to reveal that she had an abortion way back in the 70s. The book is probably set 2010s, 2015 era, 2012. And so she knows she's about to be charged with her ex-husband's murder. She sees all the evidence piling up. She can read the writing on the wall. So she goes to Bocephus, and they are old friends. And she says, look, you need to get your life back on track. You need to get your kids back. I need a lawyer I can trust, and that's you. And he's like, no. She's like, yes. Eventually, he agrees to help. And what unravels is this great, twisty legal thriller. And I didn't see the end coming. Like, I truly did not see the end coming. And it was fantastic. Now, if you do not like language in your books, just skip this one. However, if you just want a good thriller that's, legal based and you want to listen to something, I can easily recommend this one. I will pick up more by this author on Audible to listen to. It was easy to listen to while I was doing other things, and that is what I wanted. So, okay. And then I listened to Amadeus by Peter Schaefer. This was it is part of the Read My Life Challenge. And it is also one of my all-time favorite movies. And I thoroughly enjoy this production on Audible. The play is fully acted out and voiced. It was fantastic. It was enjoyable. Was it as good as the movie? No. Because the movie is just perfection for me. Don't get me wrong, if I had never seen the movie, this would have been a 5-star. But because of the movie, it's probably a 4. And that is performance-based, not content-based. But, I don't want to say too much about this one because it will spoil the play. It will spoil the movie. Just know it is fantastic. It truly is fantastic. And I'm not sorry I listened to it. I listened to it while I was cleaning house. It was perfect. And there is musical accompaniment, obviously. So I was just thrilled to pieces. Okay. And then what did I read? Well, next up would be 2 physical books. First, I finished The Grey King by Susan D. Cooper. This is the 4th book in the Dark is Rising sequence. It's a 5-book series. This is definitely middle grade. I read this for my Read Your Life challenge, and I read this for Anne's Reading the Classics challenge, and it's definitely it's middle grade, and it's fantasy, and I have absolutely no qualms about saying that this is completely appropriate to hand to your kids and read. It tells a story of good versus light, and there are, major consequences that happen in each of the books based off of the actions of the hero of the series, which is Will Stanton. And he does a lot of growing up over the series. He's 11, so he's not, he's not old by any stretch of the imagination. But this one takes place in Wales. I learned stuff about Wales I didn't know I didn't previously know, which is always a bonus for me in any book, especially in a middle grade book. And, this was an easy, read after a long day when, I'm reading and he's watching television, and it was just joyful. And I cannot wait to read the last book in the series. I may or may not read it this year. I won't be surprised if I put it off till next year. So, but overall, yeah, this is a terrific series, and, pick it up, give it to your kids. It's great. And then I finished Anne of Avonlea. This is book 2 of the Anne of Avonlea series, or Anne of Green Gables series. And in this book, it opens up and Anne is 16, and she's about to become the school teacher for Avonlea. And this book takes place over 2 years. Marilla adopts, by the end of the book, 2 more kids. Anne is dealing with Matthew's death. There's some romance. There's romance for Diana. Anne does a lot of growing up. And by the conclusion of the book, Anne is stepping into the next chapter of her life. And I am just entranced. I do not remember reading past Anne of Green Gables as a child. So these may or may not be rereads for me. I remember nothing. I am just thoroughly loving time with Anne. Her imagination, her compassion and generosity for those around her are just inspiring. And her ability to see the good in every situation is humbling. And I am so looking forward to the next book. And I may or may not pick it up this week. We shall see what kind of reading week I have. It's probably going to be really busy around here, but that's okay. And I'm noticing that the neighbor's tree across the street has completely almost leafed itself out over the weekend. It's amazing what 90-degree days will do for you. None of our trees are yet even budding, so yeah. Okay, that is 5 books so far. Last book was a Kindle read, and that would be Magnify by Stephanie Lozinski. This is the first book in the Storm and Spire series. It is written by a Catholic author. It is listed as Christian fiction, although I think it's a little more accurate to say it's Catholic fiction. And it is fantasy, and it is fantastic. I read it in one day. I was willing to stay up late last night to finish this book. It was absolutely fantastic. So, starts off, opening scene. There are 3 people. They are delivering an offering of riches to something known as the Dracodai, which are the dragon gods that people in this realm worship. And our hero is, his name just flew out of my head. Wes. And he is known as the envoy. And he is the one that, for the rest of his life, delivers the offerings to the Dakota. So he does it. He's 17 as the book opens. And on the way back to his, home base, they are attacked, and the story spirals from there. There's also a dragon, and the dragons have made a pact with the dwarves in this world, and they work together to protect. Dragons don't attack the residents of the world. They're guardians in essence, and they do communicate. So, and the dragons are separate from the Dakota gods. Well, there's one dragon. Her name is Celestria, and she does not live up to what her parents want her to be. She is a bookworm. She's curious. She goes off exploring on her own, and she stumbled across something that talks about the Higher One and how he is getting ready to I don't want to say cleanse the world of all the people who have worshipped false gods for the last 1,000 years. And she's trying to warn people. And she meets Wes, and she's like, dude, do you know what you're doing? And they have a conversation. It just goes from there. And there's so much faith in this book. It is stellar. I'm going to read you a passage. Hang on, let me go grab it. Okay, I found it. And this is Celestria talking to herself. Over time, she hoped that she would be able to peacefully recognize the truth for what it was. It was a good thing to be humble. It was a good thing to put your trust in someone who was perfect, because she was not and never could be. It is so true and so powerful of statement. There's one more. I have several, but I'm just going to read one more. If she was faithful in her prayer to the High One, he would answer. Even when she could not feel his love or understand why he was allowing the events in Kevereth to unfold the way that they were, she trusted he knew the way forward. She only had to hold on. The faith in this book is beautifully expressed. It perfectly blends into the story. It doesn't smack you over the head and go, hey, look at me. Instead, it's just what I'm always saying. It's just gentle, everyday faith. And it was so beautiful. I actually stayed up last night until I finished the book. Cannot wait to read the second book. The entire series is on Kindle Unlimited, and I didn't know about it when I filmed my Catholic genre video, and I'm about to go film a clip to insert into that video because it is fantastic and it should not be missed. Okay, so now you are caught up on the month of March so far. I've got to tell you that taking a break from the pile of possibilities and everything I'm supposed to be reading, for challenges and Dave and myself and all the things has helped tremendously. The reading slump is broken. I fell back in love with reading last week. I cannot wait to read. It just, I have no better way to express it than I fell back in love with reading to the point where, I'm having to force myself to put books down to go do other things, like cook dinner and do laundry. So I hope if you were in a reading slump, it has been broken. And I hope that your month so far has been as joyful as mine has been where books are concerned. Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.